The U.S. military has conducted its first known airstrike under the Biden administration. The Pentagon says it's retaliation against Iran-backed militias that attacked Americans in Iraq. And in the U.S., Biden's nearly $2 trillion pandemic relief bill meeting pushback from Republicans. This comes as Democrats say the plan isn't too big and must be passed. And former President Trump's senior advisor hinting at what topics Trump might touch on at his upcoming speech at the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC. Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. The U.S. is once again embroiled in the Middle East. The U.S. military last night conducting its first known airstrike under the new administration. The United States launched airstrikes in Syria Thursday, hitting a site used by two Iranian-backed militia groups. The move comes after recent rocket attacks on the Ibril airport in Iraq, which killed one civilian and left 5 Americans wounded. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says he's confident they hit the right target. The White House didn't directly blame any specific group for the rocket attacks in Iraq, but it did say it would hold Iran accountable for the actions of its proxies. Austin says he recommended that Biden authorize the airstrike. It's Biden's first military action since taking office. Austin says the administration was deliberate in its approach. The Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reporting on Friday 22 casualties so far. They say the number could rise. The airstrike comes as the Biden administration seeks to rejoin the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. President Trump withdrew from it in 2018. He said it gave Iran billions of dollars, yet failed to stop the regime from developing ballistic missiles. And now Russia is weighing in on the matter. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov saying Friday the U.S. gave Russia a 4 to 5 minute warning before the strikes. He says it wasn't enough. He says the warning was given when the rockets were en route, adding this has no value from the angle of deconfliction. This is in reference to communications between U.S. and Russian militaries to deconflict Syrian airspace in order to avoid clashes between them in the air. Russia has a major role in Syria since 2015, when President Vladimir Putin sent forces there to back their longtime ally, Syria's president. Syria's foreign ministry on Friday condemned the strike, saying it was in violation of international law and would further increase tensions in the area. Chairman of the Russian State Duma's Foreign Affairs Committee says the attack shows Washington is not interested in peace in Syria. The Pentagon defended the move, saying it's an unambiguous message. President Biden will act to protect American and coalition personnel. At the same time, we have acted in a deliberate manner that aims to de-escalate the overall situation in both eastern Syria and Iraq. The last U.S. strike on the Syrian border was in 2019. Now, some are accusing Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris of hypocrisy, saying they're doing the same thing they criticized Trump for doing. Progressive Democrat Ilhan Omar also brought up a 2017 tweet from Press Secretary Jen Psaki. Psaki had asked what legal authority Trump had to order airstrikes in Syria. Omar quoted the tweet on Thursday, writing, "Great question." Others online are quipping that the U.S. bombed Syria faster than it took to pass the $2,000 stimulus checks. Speaking of the stimulus checks, Biden's nearly $2 trillion pandemic relief plan is facing challenges, as Republicans claim Democrats aren't willing to compromise. President Biden saying now critics say the plan is too big. Let me ask them a rhetorical question. What would you have me cut? What would you have me leave out? House Republicans have responded with a lot. Congressman Markwayne Mullin saying for a start, he's suggesting cut the $350 billion in blue state bailouts, the $223 million for Pelosi's Silicon Valley subway, the $12 billion in foreign aid, and the $50 million to Planned Parenthood. Some are pointing to over $100 million for a controversial underground rail project in the Silicon Valley. Planning for it has been ongoing for several years, but the project has yet to break ground. According to Mercury News, the project has caused outrage among local officials who say there are exorbitant costs involved, and the cost is only expected to go up. They say a disproportionate amount of local sales tax funds are going to the project. Back in 2018, it was already estimated to cost nearly $5 billion. That's gone up to nearly $7 billion. At the current schedule, it'll be finished in 2030. The ambitious project aims to build train platforms 100 feet below street level. It would be the biggest subway tunnel ever built. So big, it could fit nearly a 4-lane freeway for almost 5 miles under San Jose. High-speed elevators would bring passengers to the surface. Republicans are criticizing Democrats for pushing the stimulus package without accepting input. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said out of the 286 proposed amendments to the bill, only 2 were accepted. Calling it the Pelosi payoff, several Republican leaders say only 9% of the entire package goes towards pandemic relief. They write, simply put, this legislation is not about COVID relief. The rest, they say, is a, quote, neo-socialist wish list, according to Senator John Kennedy. A memo from Representative Jim Banks reports what issues Republicans have with the package. For example, the bill is soft on China by allowing funds to go to schools that partner with the communist regime. It includes abortion funds and doesn't allow 2/3 of schools to use the pandemic funds until 2023. The House is voting on the bill Friday. It's expected to go strictly along party lines. Another part of the bill that's sparking controversy, Biden's proposed $15 an hour minimum wage. A Senate official ruled it can't be included on Thursday, dealing a blow to Democrats. Democrats had hoped to include the minimum wage hike in their $1.9 trillion relief bill, which they intended to pass through the Democrat-controlled Senate without Republican votes. In a statement, White House spokeswoman Jen Psaki said President Joe Biden was disappointed in the decision. The current federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour and was last raised in 2009. Biden and most of his fellow Democrats want to double the minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2025. But Thursday's ruling means that Democrats will likely have to pass a separate bill and undertake the difficult task of garnering some Republican support for the measure. Senator Lindsey Graham, the top Republican on the Senate Budget Committee, welcomed the Senate parliamentarians' ruling on Twitter, writing that, quote, reconciliation cannot be used as a vehicle to pass major legislative change by either party on a simple majority vote. Yet despite Thursday's decision, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said that the Democratic-controlled chamber would still include the minimum wage provision before sending the relief bill to the Senate. That would leave Democratic Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer with a consequential choice of either removing the provision or challenging Thursday's decision. Pelosi called it disappointing, adding that House Democrats will pursue every possible path to make $15 an hour the nationwide minimum wage. Republicans say it has nothing to do with virus relief and will hurt struggling businesses. Now let's turn to the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC. The biggest gathering of conservatives in the world, all eyes are on the lineup of speakers. Former President Trump is expected to speak on Sunday, the last day of the conference, his senior advisor hinting at what will be covered. Jason Miller tells founder of Mediaite Dan Abrams in a radio interview that Trump is expected to lay out his vision for America. Miller also says Trump is going to tell attendees what he thinks about President Biden's recent moves, as well as talking about his concerns over the direction Biden is taking the country since he took office. Biden's executive orders have done a 180 on many Trump-era policies. Miller says Trump will focus on a few major topics. Those include the Democrats' push to give illegal immigrants a pathway to citizenship, halting the construction of the border wall, and canceling the Keystone XL pipeline. In the interview with Abrams, Miller said the focus here really is the exact things the president predicted would happen if Joe Biden were to be elected president on the policy end have already started to happen. Miller also said Trump's speech will include other key topics. Those are the future of the Republican Party, his America First agenda, and lessons learned in the 2020 election campaign. And Miller told Abrams that in his speech, Trump may also talk about ways to improve the integrity of elections. Miller reassured the interviewer that Trump will explore this issue in a way that is, quote, forward-looking. In the interview, Abrams accused Trump of spreading the lie that votes were switched and that he won in a landslide. Miller said he expects Trump's only mention of election reform will be in the context of what needs to change in future elections. And Miller said there are some constitutional violations that need to be addressed with state legislatures nationwide. Miller previously said Trump is also expected to touch on China, saying, quote, he's going to present an optimistic vision for a country where communities are safe, where criminals are behind bars, and where everybody can earn a decent, high-paying wage and produce products here in the United States, where they should be made, not in China, not overseas. And Senator Ted Cruz speaking on Friday at CPAC, saying he's not going anywhere in the face of cancel culture. He also said he believes Trump isn't going anywhere either and will continue to play a role in the GOP's politics. The GOP is assessing its path forward. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said Thursday he would, quote, absolutely support Trump in the next election if he's the party's choice. That's despite blaming Trump for the Capitol breach. Some want a change in leadership, but others argue that embracing Trump and his America First agenda is the way forward. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive and have a wonderful weekend.